All right. Hello, everyone. This is Krista with alifeinprogress.ca. I've been loving my interview series this school year through a very chaotic season of life, but I love that these opportunities to connect with other women who are also doing work that lifts up women in the world across oceans and bridges, that it helps me feel anchored in a time of the world that feels slightly chaotic. And it's just a joy to be able to meet with Nicole here today. Nicole Annette runs Flourish, a self-care writing circle community, and she's host of the Journal Coaching podcast. She helps people flourish and return home to themselves through journaling. Her cute journal Junky Etsy shop sells recycled handmade guided journals and stationery, and it looks like she takes custom orders. Is that so?
Yeah.
It's really cute, your stuff. So you guys might want to go check that out, and we can always share links. But it's called Journal Junky. So welcome, Nicole. To help us get to know you a bit better, and these are often selfish questions because I love geeking out about who people are and how they think. So would you please share with us one thing that's lighting you up these days? And then one thing that feels challenging or perhaps like a growth curve in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So what's lighting you up?
Well, right now, what's lighting me up? I think everything that I am able to offer with my current community. Just being able to connect more deeply with others. I'm an introvert, classic in every classic sense of the word. And so 2020 was my day to get out of my comfort zone and to flourish. And so I made the intention to connect with as many people as possible and to make deep connections virtually. And so just reaching out and learning about people and hearing their stories. And I've done that this year, and that has been most amazing. I think the beautiful thing about it is I'm noticing how much we're more alike than we're different, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I love that. That's one of my favorite parts of work. I'm a very strong introvert as well,
Mm-hmm.
And I feel awkward sometimes face to face with people. Yet I crave deep connection, meaningful connection,
Right,
and so my
right.
work allows me to do that around the world. So I love that. So is there something that's challenging you or feels like a growth curve right now for you or in your life?
There is. Last year, we had a significant life change. And just a long story short, my husband his income was slashed by 50%. And we were in a total state of scarcity. And so in that time, we made a lot of changes in our lives. And the one change that we made was minimalism and seeking simplicity. And so we sold our large house that was beginning to go into pre-foreclosure. And just a lot of events, our worst nightmares kind of came to fruition last year. And so we sold our home, and then we vowed to live in something more simple. And so we got an apartment, which is 1/3 of the space of our home. And so just the transition from living a larger life, if you would, to a more simpler life and being much more intentional about what we are doing and why we're doing it, more mindful about our activities, our experiences, our dollars, what we're eating. Our whole entire life has changed. And so, bringing my children, my sons, into this lifestyle with us and letting them see the benefits of living more simply, that has been a beautiful transition, but very challenging for me as well. And so that's what we're slowly working towards in our household. And it's been rewarding, but it's definitely been a growth curve and a lot of learning. And I know you live that life. And so I've been learning from you and other people that are very inspirational on Instagram, just kind of learning how to adopt this and adapt this lifestyle. But I love it.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Well, and I think anytime that we're almost forced into transition, there's going to be some anxiety and maybe even some like struggle and all of that, right? So, but it can still be good. I think that's a great takeaway too, is that sometimes even when we are forced into hard things, um, we can come out whole and strong on the other side.
Right.
So.
Definitely.
So, and finally, how are you loving yourself well through the ups and downs of life right now? I think this really matters. So, like, I mean, obviously, all of us are connected across the world right now in a way that we haven't been before just because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so, how, it doesn't have to be specific to that, but that's front of mind right now as schools are closing and libraries are closing and things. And
Right.
so, how are you loving yourself well in this season?
I love that question. What I'm doing is just really just being still, trying to not make rash decisions, trying to make every decision out of a space of abundance and not scarcity, noticing what I'm thinking, noticing what I need right now. I think that is how I'm loving myself, because I can easily feel frustrated just by nature and overwhelmed and stressed with when anything doesn't go according to my plan in life. And right now my plans are just disheveled, as I'm sure many of ours are, and my schedule is off. And so for me to be able to deal with that challenge of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, not being able to have everything orderly, I need to relax my mind, and I do that by writing. And my number one question that I always use is, what do I need right now? And just when I'm feeling a little antsy or feeling in that way, then just checking myself and say, like, oh, okay, stop, just pause. Let's come back in. Let's find that quiet space, and let's see what we need right now and what's causing this friction and this resistance and this frustration or overwhelm, and let's just write through that. So writing is very much so my go-to right now for self-care.
I love that. Any other a couple other little things that are, they create a foundation of health or stability for you?
Yes, we are staying outside as much as possible. I'm buying roller skates today. I can't wait. And just getting out there. We live in the mountains here in Asheville, so it's gorgeous. The weather has broken, so it's pretty nice. But so we've been staying outside, staying in our local gardens, and just exploring nature and focusing on, what's real, what's outside, what can we enjoy, instead of just focusing internally on what's going on within. And also maintaining home is important to me right now, and it usually is, but even more so having those quiet spaces, those calm spaces, having those orderly spaces. I'm organizing. I'm making sure we know where everything is. And so just, I find myself decluttering even more in this space right now in this season.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like you and I have a lot in common. Are you into the Enneagram or my?
I have played around with it. I think I'm a number 7, but I'm not really sure. I gotta do it again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so this is a paraphrase of something, and sorry, my throat's bugging me this morning, so I just have to clear it a few times. So you shared something like this on your Instagram story. The words you write can change your life. And I'd love to explore that with you. So you're talking about how one of the ways that you're loving yourself well in the season is writing. And here you say the words you write can change your life.
Mm-hmm.
So would you share your experience around this and your beliefs around the power of the words we write? Like, why does
Oh,
that matter?
definitely. Oh my, where do I start? Words have been so powerful in my life since I was young. I started journaling at 9 years old. I have my first journal when I was 9, and it has just been a constant friend and companion throughout the years. And now I'll be 40 in June. and it's still a very close friend. And what I realized throughout my years is that what I write becomes real. And I'm a firm believer that what you think leads to your feelings, and what you feel leads to your actions and behaviors. And we know that our actions and behaviors, that's what creates our life. Our choices create our lives. And so if we're unaware, I can talk about this like forever, Krista. So if we're unaware of what's going on in our minds, then we find ourselves living a reactive life to external stimuli where we are not in control. We're living on autopilot. And next thing you know, we're just living life as 20 years later, 15 years later, and I have not done what I intended to do. I am not where I want to be. I am not living the best version of the life I envisioned for myself. But when we stop that pattern, and to me, writing down is halting that pattern of just living and existing. And so when you take the time, first you're experiencing intention, and then there's mindfulness. And you kind of stop the moment of wild thinking, and you bring yourself, what I call bringing yourself home. And so when you're able to
And I love that,
write
by the way.
down,
I love that
oh,
term.
it's so true. And I think that we should be our own best friends, and most of the time we're not. So when we're able to be vulnerable enough to explore our thoughts on paper, then our thoughts become tangible and malleable. And we can say, oh, this is why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, because these are the thoughts in my head. And so if I'm focusing on negative thoughts, then I'm going to be feeling negative emotions. And then that's going to dictate my negative behaviors more often than not. And then my life is just going to be one big ball of negativity. And I'm not sure of where that comes from. So it's coming from our thoughts. And so once we're able, again, to write down our thoughts and to see the manifestation of those thoughts on paper, then we have more control. Then we can say, you know what, I'm not going to think that. I'm going to decide to think something else. And that awareness, just simple awareness of, oops, I recognize that thought. That's a limiting belief. How can I change that? What else can I think in the place of that thought? And so writing that down, now you're able to see what kind of feelings you have. What kind of feelings do you desire? So if you desire a certain kind of feeling, if you desire a certain outcome in your life, it just goes back to your thoughts. And so again, noticing your thoughts, putting that on paper, those thoughts become reality in your life. And so your
I
thoughts
will say that sometimes, sorry, Nicole, there's always a little bit of a crossover, like when
okay.
we talk, but I will say that sometimes what we also see is writing can help us see what we're believing, right? So exactly, you did say that, but also sometimes it's not a case of choosing a more helpful thought. It's a case of processing trauma, processing grief, which is valid, right? But also to have an avenue where you're allowed to get it out of you, so that it's not just circling and like simmering and even festering inside of us, right? And I'm thinking that sometimes it can also, maybe we're like, I'm fine. But what comes out in our journaling is we realize I'm not fine. And this would be a good indication for, to get help, which would also be positive action, right? So I love that as well. That, and like a lot of writers say that, like they don't even know what for sure what they believe until they get it on paper.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So thank you. But I did cut you off. And so was there more that you wanted to say about that? About the power of the words we write and or your experience with this?
Well, that's pretty much what I was thinking. I was thinking about an experience specifically. A couple of years ago, my firstborn, he was born, and that was 8 years ago. But previously, no, right when he was born, 6 years ago, I began to get sick, and I was sick for a year before I figured out what was my problem. And the problem was I had Graves' disease, which is a form of hyperthyroidism. And that problem was so severe at the time. I was in Great Depression. had a brand new baby. It was just, I was a mess. I lost all my self-confidence. I physically changed. There were some physical manifestations of the disease on my body. And so I was just in a Great Depression. And I needed to have radiation therapy in order to overcome this. And so I was isolated from all human contact for 10 days. And in those 10 days, all I had was my journal and my pen. And it was a huge transition in that 10 days. I was a very much so an independent person, a go-getter, never asked for help, never needed help, but I needed help at that time. And so as family and friends began to bring meals to us 3 times a day, I would have to go outside and pick it up off of the threshold because I could not connect with them physically. I began to think about, what am I doing? Why am I here? What's my purpose right now? And so prior to that experience, I was very self-focused. I was very focused on me, myself, my life, my children, my husband, and not very open focused or community focused. But after that time, I began to write myself from the ground up, in that I was exploring my purpose and my intention. And so as I began to write, I began to notice the way that I was and ask myself, how can I become the woman I wanted to become, which was a woman that was giving, a woman that was loving and compassionate and, very much so people oriented in how can I serve others. And so that is an experience for me that I was able to write myself into the life that I wanted to live. And I did not feel like that woman, but I wrote down who I wanted to be, and I just followed her footsteps and started making action plans and creating purposeful action in my life towards the woman I wanted to become. There's an author I'm reading, his book is Atomic Habits by James Clear, and he says every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. And I took that to heart before he even said that. That's what I was doing, living this life that I wanted to be, the life of this woman that I wanted to become. And so that is a instance in my life where I feel that writing became my reality, writing this woman into existence. And then I love the word manifesting, but manifesting her behaviors and bringing that in her mindset and her thoughts and what she will be feeling and all of that. And so now I'm proud to say I have become that woman. And that is the way that writing has changed my life.
Yeah, that's a powerful example. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that women in my membership in particular, but probably those who have followed my work for any amount of time will see the clear connections here, because I am always talking about creating a pause or a space in which we can choose our response, and in which we stop moving on autopilot, stop moving by even gut instinct, and listen in and get intentional about who we want to be and how we want to be in the world, and then take imperfect action towards that. So that was a really lovely example. So this month in my membership, we choose a topic each month, and I loved how I love my membership, so I do talk about it a lot because the topics we talk about matter a lot to me. And so last month we were talking about befriending ourselves, and you talked about becoming your own best friend. This month we're speaking to living rooted and resilient. So really we're focused on building resilience, grit, a sense of agency, and we're in week 3. And this week, this is different from any other month, but this week, really everything is all about what we're talking about. It's about writing for resilience, writing to create a new story, or reframes about, and even, so anyways, it's so, and this is actually why I invited you to talk to us specifically this week. It's perfect. So we're talking about storytelling or writing as a form of recovering or building resilience. I've offered my Brave and Beautiful members a handful of exercises or writing practices to support this work. And I've pulled them from, people working in clinical practice, researchers and stuff that use writing as a tool for recovery and building resilience. But I would love to chat with you a little deeper then about a favorite tool that you might have for rewriting a new story for our lives and what that might look, sound, feel like. I feel like you just described it to us in a way. So can we try to take that a little bit deeper, I guess? And so storytelling is a form of rewriting our lives. And it sounds like you shared a couple instances, just to clarify. You talked about the sort of the financial changes and moving towards simplicity or minimalism. And then you also talked about that depression caused by Graves and autoimmune disease that also led you into a new and showing up as the woman that you truly want to be in the world. So
it was funny because my husband and I just had a discussion about resiliency and grit last Sunday, and just how we've noticed that in our lives. And let me think. Well, to me, resiliency is having the courage to get back up, having the courage to remain vulnerable. I think some of us, there's a disconnect between what we want out of life and where we are in life. And that disconnect in my community, what I've experienced is when people don't want to be vulnerable, when they really don't want to know the thoughts that they're thinking, or they're fearful of really sitting with their feelings. And so therefore they do what I call buffering, which is, what else can I do in place of experiencing my emotion? And to get past that, it's hard. I mean, it's not an easy thing. It takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of willingness to experience those emotions. But I'm thinking back to when I was sick. What two things that really came to my mind, and I do this now. I write 2 columns. In the first column, I write, what do I want more of in my life? Second column, what do I want less of in my life? And in this exercise, I do this as often as possible because, again, it just wakes up that awareness that I may not be doing what I want more of or what I want less of, but I'm still willing to sit with that, if I can say that, and just consistently writing and becoming aware, what do I want more of in this life right now? And I break that down in every aspect of my life: physical, spiritual, emotional, mental, financial, whatever. And the same exact thing with, what do I want less of in my life? And I think for me, just looking at that list, continuously writing down that list, helps me to see, I don't want this. I don't want this in my life. So what can I do to release it? What can I do to let this go? I look at the things that are no longer serving me. How can I release those things that are no longer serving us? And so that's kind of a little practice that I do. I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of what I do in my life, to stay resilient, to stay, and also honoring who I am, honoring my achievements, honoring what the hard places I've already come through, and acknowledging those. I write that often so I can remind myself that I am strong, I am courageous, I can do hard things. So those 2 things are kind of what I do in my personal work.
yeah. So do you have a practice of writing every single day?
Yes, I write every single day, multiple times a day. Like, I'm addicted to my journal. But I'm constant. Go ahead.
Why don't you share what it looks like in your life? So other people have that your example of what that looks like.
My writing practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in the mornings, I guess what is referred to now as morning pages, but I wake up and take my thyroid medicine and I get my journal and I write anything in my mind in the mornings. And then I also write out my plan for the day, my intention for the day, what it is about my first three things that I need to get accomplished or want to get accomplished. How do I want to feel by the end of the day? And then throughout the day, I check in with myself if I'm having, again, a resistance about something or I'm feeling frustration. I just may grab that really quickly just to write through, why am I feeling like this? What do I want to feel right now? Okay, how can I reframe this thinking? Is it limiting beliefs? What am I feeling? And just writing that out if we have maybe a disagreement in our home or something, just taking time to get those thoughts out on paper and get those emotions out. And then just throughout the day, I write lists. I do a lot of list writing, crossing out. Really, I write a lot of content for my community. So that's always some thoughts that is coming up. I'm jotting that down in my journal. And at the end of the night, I'm just writing gratitude. I'm thankful for the good things I've experienced today, even if life didn't go as I planned. You know, what did go well? What am I grateful for? And what was I compassionate about? Who do I show compassion? How do I serve today? And then just start again the next day. So it's really simple. Just it's more an intuitive thing for me, more as it comes to mind. That's when I write. But
Yeah.
it's an everyday process.
Nice. So it sounds like similar, like exercises that I would encourage my clients to do. But you're doing them, but you're also using the journal as a tool to get those out of you. Whereas sometimes we process in our head or whatever.
Right, right.
I do have a question. Do you have one favorite journal that you're doing all of that in, or do you have multiple journals that you're using for the different, your morning pages versus your gratitude?
I'm
What are you
almost
using?
embarrassed.
Can I see it? Pardon me?
I'm almost embarrassed to say I use 5 to 7 journals every day. This right here is my favorite. I got it. It was a gift online, and it's like embossed here. It's so gorgeous, and it's leather, and it smells delicious. This is my 2020 vision journal. So in the beginning of it, I wrote, "Dear Nicole, what you write in this book becomes real. Write with care. January 20th, 2020, at 3:36 p.m. from my bed." And so this journal for my all things business. I have a list journal that I write in for what needs to be done, like household duties, chores, whatever. I have a budget journal that I visit every day for our family budget. I have a spiritual journal that I do for my like devotions, meditations, and so forth. I have another journal that I write just nothing but complete content in. So those top 5 come to mind. Those are what I use every single day. And a little jotter in my purse if I'm out and something is interesting or a thought comes to mind, then I just have like a little purse jotter that I write that down. So about
Yeah.
5 to 6 journals a day.
Yeah. Okay. But it sounds like they're in use. They're not being wasted. They are really
No, no, no.
used. Yeah. Because I know a lot of us, we have like fetishes over journals. They're like
Mm-hmm.
so fun and pretty, but they don't get used. One
Yep.
of the women who I've worked with her for a long time, her name is Teresa. She'll probably be able to watch this because she was excited. She makes beautiful leather bound journals. And she's on Instagram, and I know she loves beautiful pens and journals. And I think I'll have to ask her again, but I think she actually does use them too. And she gifted me one after my son died, a beautiful journal.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, thanks for sharing that. I'm less of a journaler, and I think this is good because we're going to talk about how other people who feel maybe a little resistant, they're not quite so devoted to it, how can they still use this? Don't like dismiss it all just because it doesn't come naturally. So for me, I've had more like off and on. I write in various forms. I like to process online, admittedly. I find that when I'm processing deep emotion like grief, I like to use my laptop. more than, it's like it flows. I don't know how to describe it, except I can find what I need to say more readily. But then there's other things that I use. So my journals, which are not beautiful like that, but my 52 Mondays journals, my seasonal ones,
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of like, they're not pretty like inside, but I use them more to process like anything creative, projecty. Sometimes if I'm chatting with a friend and I want to remember something, so they're a little bit more like all over the place, but still I like pen to paper, even though I love my laptop. I still love always, and in my bag, like I don't call it a purse, but like my one bag I always have a little notebook in there as well
Mm-hmm.
to capture a quote, a thought. It could even be a little list, but usually it's for like, I hear a word, I hear something, or I get an idea, or I'm reading a book and I'm like, ooh, there's just a phrase in there that I just love and I need to copy it down.
Right,
so,
right.
so yeah, I'm a little bit more like all over the place, but definitely I have an agenda as well that right now has blank pages in it. And um, it felt a little wasteful. I didn't know what it would be like. It's my first year using this agenda. But this year, like, we've gone through so much hard stuff, especially this last 5.5 months. And I actually found that it was really helpful to have that piece of paper right there every day, where it's like it was staring at me and I had permission, whatever was going on, whether it was to gather important information or just to process something. I really appreciated having that there now as well.
Right.
So, actually, I'm going to say one more thing, just because ideas can it can be inspiring for people. I think
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend, Karen, who maybe a couple years ago told me that she keeps a clipboard with a piece of paper on it. And I think she just keeps that in her main living space and then writes stuff on it. And that's how she kind of moves through her day, is with this clipboard
Mm-hmm.
of gathering, whatever she needs to express. So lots of great ways, right, that we can do this for
Definitely.
ourselves.
Definitely.
All
I've
right.
even heard of people that use Post-it notes, and they have Post-it notes all over their house, and that's just how they process their information. So whatever works. I'm a fan of pen and paper. So in any modality, I think that's great.
Uh, yeah. Um, all right. So, well, my next question was around the topic of how, like, not journaling doesn't come easily or naturally to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been in this camp where I, have felt like I do it for this, but I don't want to do it for that. So do you have tips for people, Nicole, who want to build the habit of journaling into their lives? So let's say they've heard you talk, they're like, yeah, I can see the benefit to almost rewriting the story of my life and using journaling, but I've tried it before, I always quit, I feel some resistance or my hand cramps or just whatever. Do you have any tips, like based on your community and your experience, that you could offer to help people move through resistance and perhaps stay the course? Or just be
Definitely.
willing to flex and find what works for them?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly it. Be willing to see what works for you. The first thing I suggest is release yourself from all expectation. You look at different people who are writing, oh, they have beautiful pages. Oh, they have such thick notebooks. Oh, it's leather. Oh, it's gorgeous. And we can get caught up in the hype of, I should be journaling. It's the right thing to do. I need to do this. And it may not be the right thing for you to do. And so when you get started, I would just say, release yourself of the expectation of what it should be and just play around with it. Start writing words. Whatever comes to your mind, you may have a topic. You may just, let's say you have a topic. Why do you want to write? So let's say I might want to write about processing frustration at the grocery store this morning. So I would just say, just write down words. You don't have to write, I was at the store this morning, I was frustrated because, just write down words. Frustration, inconsideration, no food on the shelves, curiosity. Just write different words that come to mind about a certain topic, or you can sit and write um, verbatim what happened that day. You can write yourself through the process. Um, oh my goodness. What else? I would definitely, when a person is experiencing resistance, I would talk about that in the journal. Right now, I want to write, excuse me, I want to write, but I'm experiencing resistance. Why do I think I'm experiencing this resistance? If I wasn't experiencing resistance, this is what I may want to talk about. So I would definitely acknowledge the resistance of writing. It may be vulnerability, it may be the fear, it may be because in the past someone has seen your journal. That's a huge thing that people experience. You may just write down one word. If you want to start, I will say just start. Just open up your book, take your pen. I always start my entries with a date, with the time, and where I am. If you want to label a topic, do that. But if you want to try it, just try it. Again, going back to the James Clear quote, you become a writer as you write. And so if you write, if you journal, you are becoming a journaler, and it comes with practice. You won't have pages and pages and pages. And someday you may have pages, some days you may only have one line, but it's all okay. If you are better at journaling online, as you mentioned, then that's perfectly fine too. The whole purpose is just being aware of your thoughts. And whatever way we are able to bring our thoughts into awareness, I think that's perfect. If it's pen to paper, if it's on your phone, if it's on your computer, just getting it out. That's the whole entire purpose of it.
Yeah, I've encouraged people, like even with my little journals, because they have like a weekly, they're seasonal. So they're meant to help us pause and consider and tune into the season we're in, like metaphorically or, like weather-wise or climate-wise. But to start to notice what's up in my mind, what's up in my body, what's going on in my life, and to just start. It's a form of loving ourselves well, I think, is when we pause and listen in, and then choose a compassionate response. So I have encouraged people to just also draw, like doodle,
Mm-hmm.
sketch, gather, that pretty little feather, that's something like it doesn't, and maybe you have like a tiny little poem, like however things come out of you is okay, right? Like,
Right.
but expression of, I think maybe the main key idea, I mean, I'm thinking out loud, honestly, and you can tell me your thoughts, but it just seems to me like maybe really the primary consideration is that we don't bottle it all up, is that we make space for expression.
Right. Right.
So, and it can
Yeah.
look a lot of different ways. So you've talked about morning pages, and some people I think do Julia Cameron's, like her form of morning pages. There are gratitude lists, there are prompts. There's so many different ways that we can approach this. But I've heard you, I must have read this on, I don't know if I read this on Instagram or on your website, but you talked about purpose journaling or journaling for self-awareness, which are some of my favorite topics. And so can you talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like, purpose journaling?
Yeah. Purpose journaling is, I think a lot of people journal their day and journal their emotions, and they just leave it there. And I think that there is a such thing, this may get me in trouble, but I believe there's a such thing as journaling wrong. And journaling wrong is journaling without a purpose. And because you can journal in such a way where it's just a cesspool of negativity. And when you're journaling that way and you're just writing all this negative thoughts that you don't resolve, and it's just there and you're reading it over and over again, that's not serving you. But to be able to use your journal with a purpose, that I'm writing these thoughts and that's okay, but here is what I'm going to do with them. That is what purpose journaling is, journaling with an intention of exploring and coming to terms
Mhm.
and awareness and acceptance, and then choosing. what am I going to do with what I've written? That's how I define purpose journaling. So it's a tool when it becomes a tool and not just a place for dumping,
Okay.
but it becomes a self-care tool
Yeah.
that can help you.
No, really important distinction. Thank you. Yeah, because I hear what you're saying is like we can just reinforce the negativity. We can
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
almost like ingrain it. Um and so I love and I do think sometimes the dump is the first process, but I agree with you. Do we dump just for dumping, or do we dump to say now what? Now what?
Hmm.
What here is true, what isn't, what can I do with this, what do I want to let go, like sort of to always be taking that. I call it imperfect action, just because recovering
Hmm. And I
perfectionists
love
are
that.
often
Hmm.
imperfect action. But yeah, always like with a sense of agency, which is okay, now what.
Right.
um all right. And so, yeah, I think we've touched on this as well, but this idea of, I've wondered if you recommend or encourage people to play with different forms of journaling, test the waters. I guess the danger there would be that people end up with 18 beautiful journals that they've written 2 pages in and they don't use. But I'm
Hmm.
sure this has come up for you. And certainly if you're working with people and encouraging people in this realm, you must witness this. So how would you encourage playing with, or do you, without kind of maybe the stop and quitting, like where there's like all the waste involved?
That's been a learning curve for me because I am a open to the blank or the line page and write your heart out. So I have been exploring other methods of writing in my own life. List writing is easy. Maybe mind mapping may be something that could be considered easy. Maybe drawing, maybe that's easy. But there are so many other techniques and ways to use your journal that I'm currently exploring. I definitely suggest that people, especially as a new writer, that people explore different ways of writing. Um, I would suggest a guided journal to begin with if you really can't generate the thoughts or don't know what to think. There's so many guided journals on my website or on Amazon and the bookstores that you can find just about a guided journal for whatever you're looking to write about. And I will start there. You can look at quotes and just pick a word and write from there. You can, like you said earlier, nature, um, poetry. So I would definitely explore and experience. You can go on Google and see the different techniques and different things about writing and just exploring and seeing which one feels good to you. Because in my practice, list building doesn't help me process necessarily. I'm making a decision, list building helps. List Listing helps me, excuse me. When I'm just processing emotion, writing helps me. If I'm exploring or brainstorming, if I'm feeling stuck, doodling and drawing helps me until that emerges. And so, yeah, I would have fun with it. I would go try it. You might love art journaling. I haven't tried that yet quite, but painting in your journal, and that can just be a creative outlet. So this, again, it's like you said earlier, it's all about an outlet. It's all about you. I want to say this so much that journaling serves you. You don't serve journaling. It is a tool for you to use, for you to explore, for you to expand your life and your mind. And you don't have to be a slave to journaling. It's working for you. It's supposed to work for you. And if it doesn't, try something else and it's okay.
Right. All right. Thank you, Nicole. So what is, or do you have a final thought, a bit of wisdom or a word of encouragement for people listening? Anything that
I
we
do.
haven't touched on that you'd love to share?
Well, I just want to share this poem. It's one of the cards in my shop, but I posted this recently. I love this poem. And it's a poem by Ashley Rice, and it's very encouraging to women, if I may just read this card to your community. It says, "There are women who make things better simply by showing up. There are women who make things happen. There are women who make their way and women that make a difference. And women who make us smile, and there are women of wit and wisdom who through strength and courage make it through. There are women who change the world, women like you. And that's the message that I just want to leave with women everywhere and the women here that may be watching in your community and with you as well, Krista.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I love this time with you. And would you please just share where people can connect with you? And especially if you have something going on right now, like wherever you'd most love them to come connect or check something out.
Well, definitely, let'swriteforachange.com. Let'swriteforachange.com. That's my Instagram page. That's where I'm mostly at every single day. All of my links are also listed there. We're in transition and building a new website, so I'm excited about that. But right now, all of my links, everything I'm doing is available at let'swriteforachange.com.
Okay, is that different? That's different from your Journal Junky Instagram page then, right?
That goes right to the Journal Junkie Instagram page.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I thought I didn't know about another page.
Yeah, that's just the domain that goes to the Instagram page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to end record here.
Okay.